been a few years since I laid down the weld, but when I posted the video, I get a lot of comments of people saying that I'm either a freak of nature at welding or I'm not using a Harbor Freight welder. And obviously neither of those are the case. I'm a completely average welder, but I'm going to show you guys a couple of tricks that I used to get a good weld out of a Harbor Freight welder, and maybe it'll help you guys do a little bit better at your welding. First and foremost, easily the most important thing is you want to get the speed and the power level to the right level. So if you're burning right through stuff, you definitely want to turn it down. And if you don't seem to be able to get it to puddle up, you definitely want to turn it up. Now, the first thing that I did, because I didn't really know what I was doing when I got this, is I started way slow because my thought process was, well, I'm not a good welder, so if I start slow, I'll be able to speed it up as I get better. That's not the way to do it. You definitely want to keep it. I keep it around 6, and let me explain why. This thing kind of sputters a little bit, and so if you keep it low, it's going to go and it's never going to beat up. It's never going to put down a good weld. So you keep the speed. I would rather keep the speed high, but turn the power low, and that way you're going to get a more consistent arc and thus a more consistent bead. That's the biggest deal. And I'll remind you guys, just like I did in the last video, I'm not running the wire that came with this. I run Lincoln 030. It'll run 035 also, but I tried to use the same logic as I did with the speed. Is I just go ahead and turn the speed up and use a smaller wire, so it's roughly the same amount of metal, but I'm able to keep a more consistent arc. If you're having trouble putting down a good bead, I think one of the most important considerations you should make is metal selection. If you're dealing with something that's got paint on it especially, or if you're dealing with just really dirty or oily metal, it might be able to lay down a consistent bead, but it's not going to adhere to the metal properly. And so one thing that I like to do, this is stainless, I'm not worried about that at all, but this has a scale on it, so you can see where the actual metal is kind of exposed, but there's almost like a film on top of it. And so I like to knock that film off so I can get the best possible weld that I can. That's probably the most important thing, and cleaning the weld properly after you're done. Those two factors, if you combine them, you should be able to get a pretty good weld out of this thing. So let's give it a shot. So I just went to lay down a tack so I can hold this piece on. It's held on pretty good right now. And for the first time since I've owned this welder, I took the cone off and I decided to clean out the inside of it. And that significantly improved my feed rate because it was sputtering a lot because the wire was actually sticking inside of the tip. I think that was a big factor in the sputtering. And so I think I'm ready to start laying down some weld. Okay, so I wanted to film this part because last time I didn't, and I feel like everybody seemed to think that this step didn't happen. So this is what it looks like when you're done welding, okay? That's probably what you guys are used to seeing. So I take this real nasty bastard, which was 20 bucks at Home Depot. It's a Milwaukee braided brush. And then I just hit it real quick. And then you have a weld. So I feel like a lot of people didn't think that that step happened, and it's pretty obvious that it did. So one thing that's probably pretty important is you want to puddle up before you even start moving the gun. So you want to just sit at the end, which is what I did. I sat at the end and I waited for it to actually start melting the root metal, and then I moved the gun back and forth from one piece to the next piece, one piece to the next piece. And you just kind of do that. Keep doing a little swimming motion until you get a decent weld. Now this one isn't super pretty, I understand that, but all of the principles that were used to make that weld are exactly the same that were used to make this weld. And maybe if I had worn a pair of gloves and wasn't screwing up my hand while I was doing it, it would have been a little bit better of a weld. And I might just go ahead and lay down another one so you guys can see that I'm not completely full of shit. think this one's gonna be a little bit better. Oh yeah. Nice. And if you don't have either of those tools, get both of those tools because they're going to make your welds that much better. Don't mind the potato gun there. And you can see right about here is where my hand was starting to get burned. And so I was having a little bit of trouble keeping it together. But like I said, the principle from the last weld was exactly the same principle as this weld. Hopefully these tips are going to be able to help you do a better weld. And thanks for watching, guys. Have a good day.